Hey everyone. Well, as you can see here, we have the timber in some sort of a state of disassembly. We actually got done with the Maiden flight earlier today, and we're going to kind of do a little post-Maiden flight debrief. So, the way the aircraft is sitting right now on this little stand is actually how I found the best way to transport it. The aircraft is not nearly as easy to transport as I was hoping it to be. So I used this little stand that I have that I used to build the B-17s with. So it happened to work out pretty well. It fit in the back of my Fiesta just fine. It takes a little bit of effort to reassemble everything, but nothing really significant by any means that's really to be of concern at the field. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and kind of go through the assembly process here real quick for how the airplane goes from transportation mode into flight mode, and then we'll do a real quick review on the post-Maiden flight. So, all right, let's go ahead and get that started. And one thing that I've done is when you are transporting the aircraft or storing it, to go ahead and put the plastic screws inside the receptacle for the here they are right here, and as well as the keeper for the wings. I went right ahead and put them in the aircraft. That way they're always secured. Okay, and I used a little bungee cord here to kind of hold the wings together so that as I drive, they don't happen to fall over. It doesn't really add any real force on there. It's just enough to keep them so that the wing doesn't happen to fall over while you're driving. All right, let's go ahead and let's assemble the wing here. Just slides together here with the carbon fiber rod. It is a little difficult to do this on the table versus actually at the field. It seems to be a little bit easier. So this aircraft is a little difficult to work with. Okay. Yeah, it is actually a little bit, it is easier to do this at the field than it is up on top of a table here. Make sure you get the all the wires and stuff down inside the fuselage. That one was actually hanging up and preventing the wing from seating properly. Let's go ahead and screw the wings together here. I mean, it's not really too bad. However, I've been used to the rest of my aircraft I can actually transport in one piece. All my warbirds, my Arrow, Archer, of course all the UMX birds. So this does take a little bit more effort than what I have been needing to do for my aircraft. Usually everything else is small enough I can fly assemble. And that's really one disadvantage of an aircraft of this size, is the fact that you basically have to build it at the field a little bit. But thankfully, it doesn't really take too terribly long. So let's go ahead and put this thing down. All right, so we have the aircraft off the stand and just sitting here on its landing gear. Let's go over a little bit of kind of my thoughts on the Maiden flight. I did 3 more additional flights after the Maiden, and one of the reasons I bought this aircraft was to use to learn how to do grass takeoffs and landings. I hand launch everything and then belly land all the rest of my aircraft, so most of them don't even have any landing gear on them. So in terms of how does it do on the grass, well, I was at a soccer field today. I didn't have a spotter to fly at my normal field, so I had to fly at a soccer field, and from those conditions, I would give the aircraft a solid B, maybe even a B minus. It didn't do all that well. I tried doing some taxi tests with it. It could get hung up. The wheels would hit divots and stuff and nose over. So I didn't try taking off from the grass. I had to use my plastic portable runway, which is actually just hallway runners duct taped together, and I got about 25 feet. And of course, this thing doesn't need anywhere near that. I did the first takeoff without any flaps at all for the Maiden, and the other 2 flights were done with takeoff flaps. And this thing does really get off the ground relatively quickly. Trying to do a scale takeoff is going to be a little difficult with this, with the slats installed, but I'm going to continue to play around with it and see what I can do. In the air, the aircraft with these large control surfaces, especially the large ailerons, I had 30% expo on takeoff, or on the Maiden flight, and I determined that after I landed that was not nearly enough expo. The aircraft moves with a lot of authority in the air, so I wanted to kind of soften up the sticks a little bit. So I think I went to like 40% expo on the ailerons and 30% on the elevator and rudder. I still wanted a fair amount of elevator and rudder authority. I just wanted to try to control the banking a little bit more with the with the ailerons. So, and that seemed to work out pretty good on the subsequent flights afterwards. Once it's in the air, one of the hardest things for me to get over was how slow the aircraft flies. Even with the flaps up, the aircraft produces quite a bit of lift, and you'd look at the airplane and you would swear that it was just going to fall out of the sky and stall and crash. It never did that. The aircraft would continually fly relatively slow, slower than I would ever feel comfortable with. So I actually flew it probably faster. So I actually flew it about 60 to 75% throttle, just because I didn't trust how slow the speed was looking, less than 50%. I think I'll get used to that more after I fly it. Otherwise, once it's in the air, it's really not a, I don't know how to say this best, but it's not a really great looking airplane in the sky. With the great big Tundra tires on there, it really looks more like, maybe more like the Apprentice with a tricycle, with a tail dragger landing gear setup instead of the tricycle. It doesn't have the presence in the air of a P-51 Mustang, a Corsair, or even my Arrow or my Archer, because it's not really a real airplane. And so while functionally it does exactly what it needs to do from a stall standpoint, it doesn't really have that beautiful presence in the air that you get from an actual airplane. But if you think about this as this is a utilitarian aircraft, and if you look at some real bush airplanes, they're not the most beautiful planes in the world either. So once you kind of get over the fact that you're not flying a beautiful warbird or even a beautiful general aviation airplane, and you focus on the fact that this is a functional aircraft that needs to get a job done, it starts to become a little bit better. Overall, the plane did quite well on its first flight. No real bad habits at all. I mean, the airplane's really stable once you get over the fact that this will fly pretty slow. I did a couple flap landings, both with the takeoff flaps, and then I did full flaps, and it's amazing how slow the aircraft will go. I had the last flight of the day, I had a few mile-an-hour headwind on landing. I had full flaps, and you could basically pull the power all the way back to idle, and the aircraft would just hang there. It was a little creepy trying to figure out how to get this thing on the ground, because this thing with the full flaps will actually almost just stop in midair. So I just had to give it some more throttle, a little down elevator, and I was able to bring it in. It is fun to try to pick a spot on the grass and say, I'm going to try to get the aircraft to land there, because you can actually do that with this one. So once you get kind of used to the characteristics of the slow flight, I think the aircraft is going to be a lot better. Would I recommend this airplane to anyone looking at it? Yeah, I think so. Once you get over the fact that it's not a real airplane in the sense of a warbird or a real general aviation airplane, like my Arrow or Archer or even the new Cirrus. Once you get over that, and if that doesn't bother you, then you'd have no problem at all. It really flies really easy. Could you use this as a 4-channel trainer? That may be a little bit of a stretch. This thing's got quite a bit of power to it, and it's got a lot of authority with the control surfaces. So I wouldn't recommend this as a 4-channel trainer. I would get some more experience with 4-channel planes before going to it. I am excited to get this thing on water. I think this thing on water is going to be an absolute blast. But I got to work on what I bought the airplane for, which is practicing takeoffs and landings. I'm excited to get more flights on it, because I think once I do that, I'll really start to fall in love with the airplane even more. Of course, the maiden flight's always just a very scary, nerve-wracking experience anyway. You're just thankful the airplane made it down in one piece. But it really did just fine. It doesn't have any bad habits. It required no trimming at all in the air. It's very stable. It handled, we had about a 5-mile-an-hour wind when I started, and about an 8, almost 10-mile-an-hour wind when I completed all my flights. Did just fine. It's a little difficult to transport, but if you build yourself a stand out of some PVC, you'll be amazed how much easier it is to get the aircraft in and out. So, otherwise, that's really about it for the kind of debrief on the maiden flight of the E-Flite Timber. Yeah, if you like this type of aircraft and you really want to practice short takeoffs and landings, I would absolutely go out and buy one of these. I wouldn't hesitate. The build quality was really good. It went together really simple. Under an hour, I was ready to go fly it. No bad habits at all in the air. If you're concerned about space or concerned about how to transport it, they make a UMX version now as well, which has a lot of these really great features already built into it. You can always go that route instead. But yeah, so far, good airplane. Looking forward to getting more flights on it. I need way more batteries. I was flying at with a timer set to 6 minutes and landed with 30 seconds remaining, and that was about 75% of battery consumption. So I don't want to fly any longer than that at this point, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that I was feeding it way more throttle than it needed because I'm just not used to the slow flight characteristics. But overall, great plane. If you're in the market for a timber, I'd say definitely go out and get one of these things. I think it's going to be a lot of fun as you really get used to the airplane, and I know it's got a huge community on RC groups that really loves it. So talk to you guys later. Hope you guys enjoyed it.